Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome back to Apolla's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and it's good to be back in the studio. I just spent an amazing weekend in Joshua Tree, just filming some really cool stuff. Not for my show, but for another show, and we'll hopefully that'll come out soon. And if you happen to see someone who looks like me on the Bachelorette yesterday. Yes, that was actually me. I've been getting calls from everyone all over the place asking if that was actually me on The Bachelorette this last night. And yes, unfortunately, it was. If you want to go back and see it, I am wearing a cat suit. It's kind of weird. Trust me, I got paid to do it. I should have got paid way more to sit there through that show. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but that's really how I feel about it. And it was, that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. It's just, it was interesting. It was an interesting day, and yes, I did get paid to be on there. I'm not a fan, so that's the story with that. So if you want to check out The Bachelorette, I believe it's the season finale that aired yesterday. You will see me on there in a cat suit. Pretty cool. No spoilers or anything. No, I'm not a fan of the show. I'm really not. Oh man. Okay. So I have a lot prepared to go through tonight. I really felt like, whenever I meet these different radio show hosts, I get brought on these different shows that are not necessarily like UFO shows, and then they always want to bring up and like rehash like these old UFO stories from like 40 years ago, and like recent ones too, but it's like I never actually spend time just sitting there going through them because I don't know, to me it's like I don't need to prove that UFOs are real. Like it's not something I do. I don't go around like digging through all these files and pulling up all these cases and like trying to like prove it to myself because I've had my own UFO experiences. So I know UFOs are real, and I don't need someone to sit there and give me some story of this like credible evidence from 15 years ago. But I felt like it'd be interesting to actually just kind of sit here tonight and go through these stories that are supposedly the most credible stories that have been out for, pretty much like all the most credible stories from the last century. So, and kind of more than anything for me to familiarize myself with them, just because, like I said, it's like when I get on like shows that don't really have to do with UFO stuff, they always want to bring up these kinds of things because they're like, oh, so you're like a UFO expert person or representative, exopolitician, and then they want to go over these old stories, and I'm like, honestly, I don't take the time to sit there and go through them because I don't need to prove it to myself. It's just not really that important to me. But I just figured for tonight's show, we can just go through the top 10 ones that everyone always talks about, just familiarize ourselves with them, and I think it'll be interesting. Like, why not? Like maybe if you have friends or family who are trying to like tell you that, oh, these are all conspiracies, then these stories, if you pull them up, these are very credited stories that major mainstream media news outlets go over all the time that are proven to be legit, supposedly. So we're going to go over them. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm back in the studio. It's good to be here in the studio. Man, we're finally got this all together here. My partner, Sean Paul, who's also doing a show here, my business partner, he finally got everything together on his end. So, it feels nice. Feels nice to be in this studio today. And I don't know if you've seen here, I have these like really sick circuit boards. Oh, I should pull that up, I guess, but I need to position my camera differently so you can actually see these a little better, I guess. But I have these like circuit boards on my desk right now so that it looks like the control panel for a spaceship. And I'm actually going to get some like cooler like spaceship like lever control things too. And I'm going to change up my intro a little bit pretty soon here. So that's kind of like the next step for me. Once I got that going, I have some scripts I'm working on. I don't know if it'll be for this platform. It might be, or, for my channel, it might be for a different platform, which would be way cool. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoy seeing me and everything I'm doing and you want to keep seeing me do this show, please donate. I'm not really getting a lot from YouTube yet, and this is what I've been putting all my time into. So, and my energy into, and it's a lot of work. So please, if you would like, go ahead and donate, in the chat. Or we also have, let me pull this up here actually. If you want to give me a little tip, there's the tip at the bottom there. Venmo tip jar at Apolla. Holla at me, holla at your girl. Okay. And then also, of course, I have my art. If you would all like to check that out, much appreciated, because, it's kind of like a donation, but with a reward, because you get an awesome gift in return for donating to me. So let's check out what we have on the site now. This is shamanspears.com. That is shamanspears.com. And okay, we got the Odyssey collection. There's quite a few left of those still. And that also includes in the Odyssey collection the Shaman Spears minis, which are basically like my regular Shaman Spears, but in a mini version. And, they're like a little lower priced than my regular ones, if the regular priced ones are a bit much. And if you want some from the Odyssey collection, they will be selling out soon when I do an event in the next couple months here. I'm going to be doing a couple events, and they'll probably be gone here soon. So if you want a silver Shaman Spear, the next ones won't be silver. They won't be the Odyssey collection. They'll be different. So, and I'm about to get working on those. Also, I have these really freaking amazing Moon Maiden headdresses. I call them Moon Maiden headdresses because I put the phases of the moon on like the forehead parts. And it was like really crazy how I started making these. I don't know. I just kind of like, I don't even know how. People keep asking me like, dude, how did you make those? And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I just kind of like started throwing something together, and this is like not what I had in my mind at all, but they just kind of ended up coming out this way, and they're really cool. The elastic on the back can be resized to fit any head size, and they're super lightweight. So, if you'd like to get one, like I said, I do next day shipping on all orders. I am back in town for a while now, so yeah. And these, I was actually originally thinking about pricing them at more like $450, just because of all the time and energy that went into them. Like, I even like rhinestone them and everything. It took hours, but I decided since they were my first ones, I might as well just price them at $250. So it was a good deal. I also have some more of the I Believe in Humans t-shirts in stock that have the Apollo's Odyssey logo on the back, which is pretty cool. I won't be, after this batch is sold out, they actually all say 1 of 30 on the side of the shirt. And after they all sell out, I won't make any more like these. So they're kind of like a limited edition Apollo's, in the first ever Apollo's Odyssey t-shirts. So no, they don't say I believe in aliens. They say I believe in humans, because we all know that aliens are real, right? We just have to believe in ourselves. So also I have these really cool Orgonite daggers, and I will have more of these up later. So these are some smaller. I have a couple smaller ones left. This one is actually sold out. And then I'm going to have some really sick ones that I just finished. I'm kind of working on. I'm going to have those up probably tomorrow or the next day. So stay tuned for that. I also have a lot of really cool Orgonite pyramids, which I made myself. And obviously I have the initiation key necklaces and the Orgonite dagger necklaces and a couple of the brass knuckles that are literally Orgonite brass knuckles. So yeah, pretty cool stuff here. Make sure you go check that out, because like I said, that's how I keep my show going. So if you want to help me keep my show going, would definitely be much appreciated. Derek here says, I got one of the t-shirts. I believe in humans too. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. Yeah, all this support has been, really great because it's been difficult getting this show going. I'm pretty much focusing all my time and energy onto that. And, I have a lot of conferences coming up, and I pretty much pay my way to most of the conferences I do just because I want to get my message out there. My Solutions for Humanity presentation, I feel, is very important and it needs to be shared with the world. So, I really travel around pretty much paying my own way into everything I'm doing. So the support is much appreciated. All right, so we have a lot to get into tonight. Let's get into this. Like I said, we're going to go through all the top 10 craziest UFO stories of all time. And I'm going to just kind of go over them with you guys. And also, these are all the most credible UFO stories, too. It's not just someone like, oh, I saw something in the sky. Like, these are all stories that are backed up with factual evidence. So that's what's kind of interesting about tonight's show. So let's get into them. Which one should we start off with first? Let's see here. I think the first one I am going to start with is the one that is on the photo over my my thumbnail, because this is the one of the it's called the DC Flyover. So this is a really wild story, and this happened in the late 50s. And I don't know what this article's. Oh, jeez. Hold on. I don't know what is playing here. Sorry, you guys. Let me see where that's coming from. Oh, man. Sorry about that. Let me see where that sound is coming from. Okay. Oh, okay, here it is. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay. Let me make sure am I still sharing? Okay, sorry. 1 second, you guys. Sorry about that. Let me pull this up here. Okay, so this event is called the DC Flyover. And we have this on the History Channel network. Sorry, a video just decided to instantly start playing when I clicked on it. So a lot of people have said that this DC flyover that happened, where literally in the 50s, I guess it's early 50s, these flying saucers were seen flying right over the White House. And a lot of people say that this is actually the Germans who decided to do this near the end of World War II to show off the technology which they backwards engineered. And these were supposedly the ships that came out of Antarctica from the supposed secret space program. But let's see what this mainstream media article says about it. When a slew of saucer-like sightings was reported over Washington, D.C. in 1952, the Air Force blocked its own investigator from checking them out. And 1952 was the year America caught flying saucer fever. So when a rash of strange sightings was reported in the skies over Washington, D.C. that summer, the press and the public demanded answers. Were these unexplained radar blips crafts that in some cases outran jets, part of a nuclear-armed Soviet invasion, a very real threat at the height of the Red Scare, or were they evidence of something far more mysterious? The Washington, D.C. sightings of July 1952, also known as the Big Flap, hold a special place in the history of unidentified flying objects. Major American newspapers were reporting multiple credible sightings by civilian and military radar operators and pilots. So many that a special intelligence unit of the U.S. Air Force was sent to investigate. What they found or didn't find, along with the Air Force's official explanation, fueled some of the earliest conspiracy theories about a government plot to hide evidence of alien life. It all started in 1947 when a search and rescue pilot named Kenneth Arnold reported 9 saucer-like things flying like geese in a diagonal chain-like line at speeds exceeding 1,000 miles per hour near Mount Rainier in Washington state. Okay, so this is not the story we're talking about here, though. Let me get to the one that I'm talking about. Okay, mysterious radar blips over White House. Shortly before midnight on Saturday, July 19th, 1952, air traffic controller Edward Nugent at Washington National Airport spotted 7 slow-moving objects on his radar screen far from any known civilian or military flight paths. He called over his supervisor and joked about a fleet of flying saucers. At the time, 2 more air traffic controllers at National spotted a strange bright light hovering in the distance that suddenly zipped away at incredible speed. At nearby Edwards Air Force Base, radar operators were getting the same unidentified blips, slow and clustered at first, then racing away at speeds exceeding 7,000 miles per hour. Looking out his tower below, one Andrews controller saw what he described as an orange ball of fire trailing a trail. A commercial pilot cruising over the Virginia and DC area reported 6 streaking bright lights like falling stars without tails. When the radar reporters at National watched the objects buzz past the White House and Capitol building, the UFO joke stopped. 2 F-94 interceptor jets were scrambled, but each time they approached the locations appearing on the radar screens, the mysterious blips would disappear. By dawn of July 20th, the objects were gone. Nobody bothered to tell Ruppelt, the Air Force's lead Project Blue Book investigator, about the sightings, and he found out a few days later when he flew into D.C. and read news reports. Ruppelt tried to get out to National and Andrews to interview radar operators and air traffic controllers, but was denied a government-issued car or even a cab fare. Frustrated, he flew back to Ohio with nothing. The very next Saturday, the UFOs were back over the nation's capital. Again, Ruppelt found out through a phone call from a reporter and immediately called on 2 Air Force colleagues to check out the situation at National. The same radar blips were back, and radar operators wondered out loud if the dozen or so objects on their screens couldn't be caused by a temperature inversion, a common phenomenon in DC's hot, muggy summer months. The temperature inversion occurs when a layer of warm air forms in the low atmosphere, trapping cooler air beneath. Okay, let's go past this. Okay, so basically that's the story of what happened there. I'm not going to read this whole article, but really interesting. Sorry, let me pull this. Oh, God, sorry, 1 second, you guys. Okay, cool, got that pause. Sorry about that. Okay, so Jeremy Cada here says, "Oh, I seen one of them Tic Tacs. Yeah, the Tic Tacs are pretty wild, and we're probably gonna go over a couple of those situations in this show as well. So, so yeah, we're gonna get into that in a second here. Leon the Wise says, "Hey Apolla, I hate that your image is so tiny. Sorry about that. When I pull up the articles, I'm a bit smaller. Sorry about that." Okay, so here's the next one. Let me see here. What do I have next for you guys? Okay, so here's another one that everyone talks about, and this is the one Betty and Barney Hill. Everyone talks about this one, so I figured, you know what? I'm just gonna get into it. Okay. Huh. Okay, how Betty and Barney Hill's alien abduction story define the genre. Their account, recovered with the help of hypnosis, detailed extensive medical exams, including a crude pregnancy test. Is it chasing us? That thought coursed through Betty and Barney Hill's minds as they drove down the empty, winding country road in New Hampshire's White Mountains. It was a September night in 1961, and they hadn't seen a car for miles, and a strange light in the sky seemed to follow them. When they finally got home to Portsmouth at dawn, they were far from relieved. They felt dirty, their watches stopped working, Barney's shoes were strangely scuffed, and Betty's dress was ripped. There were 2 hours of the drive that neither of them could remember. What had happened? With the help of a psychiatrist, the quiet couple eventually revealed a startling story. Gray beings with large eyes had walked them into a metallic disc as wide, Betty said, as her house was long. Once inside, the beings examined the couple and erased their memories. Their experience would kick off an Air Force inquiry, part of the secretive initiative Project Blue Book that investigated UFO sightings across the country. The incident would also become the first ever widely publicized alien abduction account and shape how stories like it were told and understood from then on. Debate continues as to whether the husband and wife were liars, fantasists, crackpots, or simply sleep-deprived people who later recovered seriously scrambled memories. The Hills' road trip was spontaneous, a well-earned break Barney decided the couple needed, as explained in The Interrupted Journey, a 1966 book they collaborated on with author John G. Fuller. Barney worked a grueling night shift at the post office, driving 60 miles away. Betty's job, handling state child welfare cases, was no easier, and the little free time this biracial couple had devoted to their church and activities related to the civil rights movement. After 16 months of marriage, Betty and Barney saw that this trip through Montreal and Niagara Falls as their delayed honeymoon. They left so impulsively that they had no time to go to the bank before it closed for the weekend. They got in their car with less than $70 in their pockets. On the last night of their 3-day trip, the couple sipped coffee in a Vermont diner to recharge before driving back. Barney figured if they pushed through, they would beat the wind and rains from an approaching hurricane. They left the diner around 10 p.m., estimating they could reach their red-framed house in Portsmouth, New Hampshire between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. at the latest. As they drove, strange light in the sky gave another reason to hurry. At first it looked like a falling star, but grew larger and brighter with each mile. Barney, an avid plane watcher and World War II vet, was sure they had nothing to worry about. "It's just a satellite," he assured Betty, "and it probably went off course." The light seemed to move with the car as Barney steered down the curving mountain road. The light zigged and zagged, ducking past the moon and behind trees and mountain ridges, only to reappear moments later. Sometimes it seemed to move toward them in a game of cat and mouse. It had to be an illusion, they thought. Maybe the car's movement made it seem like the light too was moving. Curiosity overcame them, and the couple pulled over at road stops and picnic turnouts to get a closer look. Through binoculars, Betty saw that the white light was really an object spinning in the air. "Barney," she told her husband, "if you think that's a satellite or a star, you're completely ridiculous." He knew she was right. Barney had an IQ of 140 and noted Fuller in his book. Barney was also a pragmatic man who couldn't give flying saucers a second thought, and remembered his niece Kathleen Marden in her work, captured the Betty and Barney Hill experience. The night was too quiet for a helicopter and a commercial plane or even military jet with a hotshot pilot. He didn't want to spook Betty, but he was becoming concerned. What was this light and why was it toying with them? About 70 miles past the diner, the object hovered just above the treetops, approximately 100 feet above them. Barney abruptly stopped the car, keeping the engine running, and shoved a handgun he'd hidden beneath the seat into his pocket and rushed into the dark field, leaving Betty in the car. What he saw was as big as a jet, but as round and flat as a pancake. My God, what is this thing? He recalled, thinking. This can't be real. Behind rows of windows, gray uniformed beings seemed to look right at him. Barney recalled, and he tried to lift his hand to a pistol, but somehow couldn't. A voice told him not to put down his binoculars. He had a startling thought. We're about to be captured. Yelling hysterically, he ran back to the car and barreled down the road as Betty tracked the craft, craning her head outside the car window. Without explanation, loud rhythmic beeps sounded from the car's trunk. The couple felt instantly drowsy and lost consciousness. They came to around 2 hours later and 35 miles down the road. Back home in Portsmouth, they tried to make sense of the night. Barney felt compelled to examine his body's lower half. Both seemed aware of a puzzling experience or presence. In the weeks and months after, Betty, an avid reader, checked out books from the library discovering the civilian UFO group, National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. She also reported the sighting to the Air Force, worried about radiation. In coming years, with Betty suffering from disturbing dreams and Barney developing an ulcer and anxiety, the couple sought mental help. The two met with Benjamin Simon, a psychiatrist and neurologist who specialized in hypnosis, a mainstream technique at the time. Through months of weekly sessions, Simon helped the couple piece together what they think had happened. A vessel had landed on the Hill's car, putting them to sleep. Afterward, gray beings walked them up a long ramp and into the spacecraft. Once inside, the Hills were separated, taking turns in an examination room that had curved walls and a large light hanging from the ceiling. Each was asked to climb up a metal table. The table was so short, Barney's legs hung over the side. During the examinations, the beings removed Betty and Barney's clothes, plucked strands of their hair, took clippings of their nails, and scraped their skin. Each sample was placed on a clear material, not unlike a glass slide. Needles connected to long wires probed their heads, arms, legs, and spines. One large needle, around 4 to 6 inches long, was inserted into Betty's belly. This pregnancy test left her twisting in pain. Throughout a being Barney and Betty called the leader watched from the side. After Betty's examination ended, the beings rushed back to her room excited. They discovered that Barney's teeth could be removed. Betty laughed, explaining that Barney had dentures, a fact of human aging the beings struggled to understand. Later, alone with the leader, Betty asked where the craft had flown, admitting she knew little of the universe. The being joked with her, saying, "If you don't know where you are, there wouldn't be any point in telling you where I am." Later, under hypnosis, she drew a star map shown to her on the ship. In 1965, the Hills story was picked up by a Boston newspaper, and after that, everything changed. The Quiet Couple story became the subject of a best-selling book and a movie starring James Earl Jones. The upstanding civil servants had become celebrity abductees. The Hills weren't the first to spot a UFO or even to report an abduction, but their story did capture the nation's imagination and was so widely publicized it had helped shape how we talk about alien encounters and abductions to this day. Before the Hills story, alien encounters were friendly, according to Christopher Bader, a professor of sociology at California's Chapman University. Some aliens even lived on Earth and commuted back on weekends. But once the Hills story became better known, abduction accounts shared certain characteristics such as medical examinations and missing time. Aliens with large heads and big eyes, dubbed greys, in UFO circles became classic sci-fi staples and personal accounts in pop culture. Close Encounters of the Third Kind and shows like The X-Files. The Hill story and those that came after helped pave the way for a new understanding of human experience. A Harvard psychologist puts it this way: the alien abduction phenomenon is, in my opinion, shows how sincere, non psychotic individuals can develop beliefs about and false memories of incredible experiences that never happened. Yeah, right. Experts of all stripes have tried to explain why intelligent and otherwise mentally stable people came forward with these experiences. Many psychologists say sleep paralysis and hallucinations played a role, leading questions during hypnosis, and the main factor most abductees unlocked their stories could have also been a factor. The rest of this just gets very psychological, but that's the story, and this is like kind of the main story, obviously, that really started UFO investigations. And it was like the main story that everyone kind of refers back to. Matthew Meinhardt here says Men in Black. You know, I wonder, a lot of people say that the gray abductions kind of have to do with possibly our government coming in and, messing with people with like these like android like beings that our government has created. So who knows about that? But kind of interesting. Okay, so let me see how many stories I have left here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I'm gonna just do half of the 10 today, and then I'll do the other 5 stories Thursday. How's that sound, you guys? Because this is a lot to go over, a little bit more than I thought. Ocean Ordell here says, Valiant Thor shared incredible technology and information while he spent 3 years at the Pentagon. Yeah, I've heard a lot about his story. I actually kind of forgot to put that in here. So maybe I think I might just do an episode on Valiant Thor. I actually have the book Stranger at the Pentagon, and I kind of want to read it first. So I'm gonna save that for that. I'll make a deal with you, Ocean. I'll go and read the book, and then I will do an episode just specifically on that, because that's a whole thing on its own. So that should be interesting, definitely. Okay, so let's see what the next one is here. I'm going to probably do 3 more on today's show, and then I'll do the other 5 Thursday, you guys. Okay. The Phoenix Lights. This one is another one that obviously everyone always talks about. Okay. Oh. Let me see here. It's the beginning of this. Phoenix Lights, the Valley's most famous UFO story. And this is from Arizona Central. So this is like, I believe it's like Central Arizona's newspaper. July 2nd is World UFO Day. To mark the day, AZ Central is featuring a story about what they consider to be Arizona's most famous UFO sighting. Originally published in the Arizona Republic on February 27th, 2007. On a mild spring-like evening, the string of amber orbs appeared as if by magic, a celestial sleight of hand that would in the coming weeks make headlines and video highlights across the nation. Although little more than an atmospheric curiosity at the time, the hovering and evenly spaced balls of light would soon become known as the Phoenix Lights. Those who accepted the explanation that it was military flares dismissed the controversy with logical precision, while people who saw it as an otherworldly encounter claim the truth has been shrouded in lies and disinformation. In the ensuing years, the Phoenix Lights would change outlooks, minds, and even a few lives. What hasn't changed is this: the mystery that still hovers above March 13th, 1977. The key witness. What she was seeing had barely registered when Lian Kitai raced inside to fetch her video camera. Lights, 6 of them, evenly spaced in a direct line. They were floating over Phoenix. Certainly not a plane or balloons. She had seen something like this before, but could these be like the amber orbs she saw in the 1995 hovering information just 100 yards from the backyard of her Paradise Valley home? And she had seen orbs like that just 2 months ago. In each case, she had snapped photos. This time she wanted video. By the time she was back on her patio, only 3 lights continued to shine. She pressed record, and those several seconds of tape would become one of the seminal recordings of the Phoenix Lights to be shown on the news, TV specials, and several years later, her own documentary. Since that night, Katai, a respected physician, had resigned from her position at the Arizona Heart Institute to devote herself full time to talk about and further investigate the Phoenix Lights. If you had told me this is what I'd be doing, she says, I would never have believed it, not in a million years. For 7 years, she spent nearly all her spare time trying to answer the question that plagued her. What were those orbs and what did they want? She finished with 750 pages of notes detailing her interviews with witnesses, experts, and UFO investigators. Her notes included extensive research of similar sightings around the world. Katai remained anonymous for 7 years, fearful of the ridicule that accompanies those who have been seen, those seen to be tilting at extraterrestrial windmills. But her chase for the truth eventually overcame her fears of going public, and she condensed her notes into a 222-page book, The Phoenix Lights, which she revealed her findings as well as her name. What she has not found is a definitive answer, only educated speculation as to the meaning of the lights. It's never been about me, it's about the data to present it, and I have come forward to tell people what I know. I'm trying to get to the story here. Let me see. Okay, the lights appear. It is generally agreed that at about 10 p.m. on March 13th, 1997, under a clear sky with no breeze, a string of lights appeared to the southwest. The orbs seemed to form a flattened V shape like a boomerang. They appeared to be motionless or traveling so slowly that movement was imperceptible. They shimmered for 5 to 10 minutes and were seen by hundreds and likely thousands of people. In the days to come, air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport would tell reporters and UFO investigators that they spotted nothing on radar. Officials at Davis Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson would report that no military maneuvers were taking place that night at the Barry M. Goldwater Range to the west of Gila Bend, and would change their story 2 months later, saying the person on duty that night failed to look at the proper logbook. Photos and video of the Phoenix Lights were popping up on local and national TV news. The images made their way around the world. Then things got crazy. Stories trickled in of isolated sightings from northwestern Arizona about 3 hours before the mass sighting in Phoenix. Some people said the lights seemed to float before accelerating and disappearing into the night. From these sightings, experts in the UFO community assembled a timeline that had a mysterious craft drifting north to south across Arizona. Video of the Phoenix Lights appeared on TV tabloid shows with breathless commentators wondering if this was the proof UFO believers had been waiting for. And when Government Fife Symington called a press conference, few expected to see the extraterrestrial who emerged from backstage. At least one person wasn't laughing. Frances Emma Barwood never saw the lights as she drove home March 13th north along Highway 51. Her eyes were on the road, not the sky, though in a week's time she'd be eye-deep in controversy. As the Phoenix City Councilwoman fielded calls from curious constituents, she decided she needed to know more. She called for an investigation. Well, what she got, Barwood says, from her home in Dewey was ridicule. Oh, the media had a heyday with me, says Barwood. Okay, I just want to get to the main story. Let me see here. So the rest of this is basically just people talking about the incident. So I think that's probably about it there. Let me see it here. Yeah, we just said the rest of this is just eyewitness accounts. So I'm gonna end that one. Okay, so that's the Phoenix Slice story, and that's obviously one that is very much talked about in the UFO community, and it's very credible because hundreds, if not thousands, of people saw it, and to this day, no one can explain what they were. So who knows? But very interesting information there. And obviously, I kind of stopped reading it because there's so many different eyewitness accounts. It's like I don't want to sit here and just read them all right now. So I'm gonna go through your comments a little bit here. See if I missed anything important. Okay, so let's see. It looks like I have 7 stories left here. And like I said, I think I'm just going to do 5, the second half on Thursday's episode. So, which one am I going to share next? Hope you guys are enjoying this. Let's see here. Okay, so this story is very interesting. I was going over this one earlier. I actually hadn't heard of this story before, but apparently it's one of the more famous ones. Man, these ads are killing me. Okay. Let's see here. Get out of here. Okay. Yes, stop seeing this ad. Oh my god. Okay. Sorry. Okay, exclusive. I have proved an alien UFO landed on Earth, claims scientist. Dr. Errol Farek has published the findings of his investigation into substance left on the ground after a famous UFO sighting in a book which has concluded extraterrestrial activity is the only explanation. In his self-published work, The Compelling Scientific Evidence for UFOs, the British-born chemist of Turkish heritage examined in detail the Delphos UFO case seen in Kansas, United States on the evening of November 2nd, 1971. So this is the Delphos case. I hadn't really heard of this one. I started looking at it before tonight's show, and it was definitely fascinating. So it has been considered by some researchers as one of the most compelling UFO cases on record, due to the scorched ring left on the ground, allegedly where the UFO had landed. The witness was Ron Johnson, 16, who was tending sheep on his family's farm with a dog Snowball at about 7 p.m. when he spotted a 6 to 8 feet in diameter mushroom-shaped UFO appearing in the night sky. It was described as having multicolored lights and hovering about 75 feet away among trees at just a few feet above the ground. It then ascended with a blinding light. He alerted his parents, who saw it disappearing from view. But the family found a glowing ring on the ground where it landed and a similar material on the trees nearby. The family said the glow felt strange, like a slick crust, as if the soil was crystallized. And Mrs. Johnson was left with a numbing anesthetic sensation on her hand after touching it. Weird. Samples of soil, which was said to have a profound water repellent nature from within the ring, were sent for analysis and stored in a number of laboratories. Another witness also came forward, a Lester Ensbarger from Minneapolis, who advised Deputy Sheriff Leonard Simpson that at 7:30 p.m. the same night, he saw a bright light descending in the sky in Delphos. According to the website UFOcasebook.com, The experience of Ron Johnson is still considered as one of the best documented ground trace UFO cases of the past century and is still unexplainable by any conventional or earthly means. Dr. Faruk, who admits to a lifelong interest in the UFO phenomenon, focused his work on investigating the chemical makeup of the soil from the ring. He was able to obtain some of the stored solid after requesting it, some of the stored soil after requesting it while based at the Nottingham University. He wrote, placing water onto the affected soil was very like placing it onto a glass surface, with the water spontaneously forming into droplets sitting on the surface. Although he remained unable to fully identify the soil compound, he claimed to detect a highly water soluble organic compound which is potentially chemiluminescent. This could have been responsible for the alleged green glow seen at the time, he said. Dr. Faruk concluded there were three possible explanations: a hoax, the ring was in fact a fairy ring, a naturally occurring ring of toadstools, or a genuine alien spaceship had been seen. He said a hoax was unlikely due to the unusual characteristics of the compound and its elongation towards the wind direction on the night. He also ruled out a fungal ring, claiming the water soluble alkali metal salt of an organic carboxylic acid found in the compound could not be produced by a fungi. This, he said, meant the conclusion of a genuine UFO sighting was the most favorable. He wrote, a picture begins to emerge as to what possibly happened that evening. The hovering object of presently unknown origin appears to have contained within its periphery an aqueous solution of an unstable compound whose likely sole function would be light emission. Some of the solution was deposited into the ground while the object positioned itself under a tree to possibly avoid observation from the air. Once enough of the solution was deposited, the object departed, after which the Johnson family approached the ring area. The book is based largely on a scientific research paper Dr. Faruk wrote for publication in a number of scientific journals, but his publication was rejected. Dr. Faruk claims that although his report deals with physical and chemical evidence as required, he was told it was investigating an inappropriate subject matter. Okay, I guess that's it. So interesting. That case is very interesting. Oh, jeez, sorry. Because there's obviously like, real clear evidence of something that is on the ground that was left that, was supposedly covering this ship. So really interesting. I mean, there's like a legit like chemical compound which they have no idea what it is. Renee Cruz here says, very compelling. I'm glued to the screen. It's good to hear that. Good to hear it. Okay. Let's see here. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, one more. I'm going to go over one more story. We're at almost an hour here, and it's definitely a lot of reading. So, I hope you guys are enjoying this. Like I said, I'll do part 2 Thursday. Okay. What one do we have next? Okay. This one is about photos that were taken over Oregon, but this was actually before Photoshop was really a thing, because it was in the 50s. So people didn't really have Photoshop back then, to my knowledge. But so here's the photos right here. If you can check them out on the screen. Obviously flying saucers, and for the 50s, that's pretty wild. Okay. Past tense, Oregon. UFOs photos taken near McMinsville in 1950 still raises questions. There were just two black and white photos taken with a simple Kodak camera by a Yamhill County farmer 65 years ago Monday. But the controversy stirred up by those images still lingers in the minds of many. Did the pictures that Paul Trent snapped the evening of May 11th, 1950, really show a flying saucer? Or were the photos fakes, simply a bid by Trent and his wife to jump on board the runaway wagon of UFO mania that gripped the United States in the late 1940s and early 1950s? The McMinsville photos weren't the first reports of UFOs, but they were considered by many who studied the topic to be among the best photographic evidence of flying saucers. And even the skeptics see them as the best fake photos of flying saucers ever found. The UFO craze in the United States is generally thought to have started 3 years earlier in June 1947 when a Boise salesman flying his small plane near Mount Rainier reported seeing 9 shiny objects flying at high speed near his craft. Over the next few days, his story exploded, and it was the first of multiple UFO reports around the world. Then, in July that year, an Air Force colonel announced that 509th Bomb Group had captured a flying saucer. His superiors immediately denied the report, but it fed the mania. And for the next several years, oh wait, I'm going to just pause this here. This is interesting. The time frame is happening in because, it kind of follows the Roswell incident, which has supposedly been debunked, but at the same time, a lot of people say that our government went in and recovered the craft and backwards engineered it. And then obviously, during World War II, the Germans started supposedly backwards engineering ships. So it's interesting that people just all of a sudden start coming out with reports around this time. And obviously, there's been, evidence of flying saucers throughout history. There's like literal ancient glyphs of them. They're in like ancient paintings around the world. So this isn't really this time era they're saying people started talking about it. It wasn't really when it started, obviously, but I think it has something to do with our government starting to backwards engineer them. Or, it could be like Germans in the secret space program in Antarctica that start working on them in Antarctica, and then they're flying them up over the United States to like show off. Who knows? So, continuing on with the story, his superiors immediately denied the report, but it fed the mania. And after the next several years, those sightings and stories led to a cascade of sightings, U.S. Air Force investigations, and science fiction books and movies, and a constant streams of claims and rebuttals that still goes on today. Okay, so this is talking about a festival in Oregon, so I'm going to get to the story here. Trent and his wife Evelyn lived on a farm between McMinnville and Sheridan. On the evening of May 11th, Evelyn Trent had been walking back toward their house after feeding some rabbits when she said she looked up and saw a flying metallic disc moving in her direction. She told her husband, and he took 2 photos of the object, which they said then quickly flew away. Trent apparently didn't think too much about the incident because he didn't get the black and white film developed until a few weeks later, and when he had used up the roll, and it wasn't until he told a friend about the sighting and showed him the photos that the incident was widely reported. The photos soon appeared on the front page of the Telephone Register, which was the local newspaper. Before long, the national media was on the story. The Trents became celebrities for a time and were flown to New York to appear on TV. They loaned the photo negatives to the International News Service, which circulated them worldwide. Eventually, the photos appeared in Life magazine, which was the nation's largest circulation magazine at the time. The Trents never received any money for the photos, and the negatives weren't returned to them for decades, supposedly having been misplaced by INS or Life. Meanwhile, researcher after researcher has looked at the photos and declared them authentic or fake. In 1997, the Trents were interviewed by Brian Denson of the Oregonian for a 50th anniversary story he and Jim Long, another reporter from the Oregonian, were doing on the UFO craze. Evelyn Trent told Denson of seeing a magnificent disc hurtling toward the house, handing the camera to her husband, who then took the photos. By then, they were living in McMinnville apartment and were interviewed together. It was clear that while she was willing to still talk about the sighting, he'd had enough. The following is from Denson's and Long's story. After he took the picture of it coming in and then going back out, the wind that came down had no motor and no smoke, no nothing. Just the wind. That's all there was, she confided to a visitor. No motor or sound to it at all. Paul Trent groaned and stiffened in his recliner. I told you to forget all about that, he said. I know you did, she said. You told me to forget about it. Quietly, she added, we've been bugged so much. The Trents have both since died, but they never changed their story about the sighting. Okay. So that was the show for tonight. I believe, like I said, I'm going to go over the next 5 in Thursday's show. So I'm really stoked about that. Again, I have my Venmo tip jar at the bottom here, which is at Apolla Holla. So holla at your girl. And then we also got, let me see here. The Odyssey collection is still available at shamanspears.com, so I also have that at the ticker at the bottom here. So if you'd like to help keep me going, please do me a favor and throw me a tip, or, just check out my art. Order some of my art. I have lots of amazing art, and I will ship it out next day. So please go ahead and check that out, shamanspears.com, and I have actually, I'm going to go over that again just because some of you may not have seen that at the beginning of the show here. So let me pull this up again. 1 second. Okay. So I'm sorry if you saw this at the beginning of the show, but I'm going to go over this again. Obviously, we had the full Odyssey collection, which are my silver stabbed shaman spears. I'm going to be doing a new collection soon here, and I'm doing a few events the next couple months here, so if you want to get some of this collection before it sells out, please make sure you go ahead and do that now. I also have these amazing Moon Maiden headdresses, which are really cool for festivals. And if for some reason this is like your first time seeing my show and you don't know what the hell shaman spears are, they are handcrafted energy channeling devices. They have copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world down the insides. I also paint them with crop circles that have been seen around the world. So they're pretty cool and they're insanely powerful. So if you don't do much with energy work, they're really cool to just hang with hooks on your wall, or what I like to do is go hiking with them. You'll never see me go hiking without a shaman spear, that's for sure. Also, the I Believe in Human t-shirts. Humans t-shirts. And I have some really cool pyramids, organite pyramids, and organite daggers, which I created myself, and I'll have some more up on the site pretty soon here. So because I've been working on an amazing new collection, so stay tuned for that. All right, you guys, it was so good to see you on here. Kieran Hall says, do you made to order spears? That's a little more difficult for me just because it takes longer. Like, you will have to wait, and like I have to make sure I have the correct crystals. But if you'd like to talk to me about that, just go to my website, apollaasteria.com. It's just my name, apollaasteria.com. It's actually in the description below my show. And there is a contact section on my website which shows my email. And if you want to email me, you will be able to, and just let me know what kind of spirit you want. We can talk about it. So feel free to do that. And I do charge a bit more if they're custom, just because, I have to order the crystals and it takes a little longer. So, but yeah, I can do that. I can do it. All right, so I will see you guys on Thursday. Really stoked about that. I'll be back in the studio. I'm trying to stay in town for a little while here before I had to leave town to do other things at the beginning of August. So I hope to see you all on my Thursday show, which is again at 5 p.m. Pacific. And I hope you enjoyed my recounts of all of these historic UFO stories, sightings, and we'll go over the next 5 next Thursday. So until next time on Apolla's Odyssey, over and out. Thanks for joining us, guys and gals. Goodbye.